A black hotel maid answered a call in Dutch in front of a millionaire. The following day, he summoned her. Zoe's mobile phone buzzed while she scrubbed the marble floors of the opulent Grand Plaza Hotel lobby. Usually, she would never take calls during work hours. Manager Richard's first rule, particularly for housekeeping staff. But she recognized the caller. The university. After 6 failed scholarship applications for her linguistics master's degree, this call might transform everything. "Just one moment," she murmured, ducking behind a decorative marble pillar. That instant altered her destiny forever. "Zoe Johnson speaking," she whispered discreetly, hoping guests wouldn't notice her. The caller spoke fluent Dutch. "Professor Van Ton from Amsterdam University." Zoe replied instantly in Dutch, her flawless accent flowing effortlessly as they discussed her international program application. Her motivation letter had apparently arrived late, she explained with concern. Then she noticed the sudden quiet surrounding her. Looking up, she saw Richard Coleman, the billionaire hotel chain owner, standing nearby, watching her with obvious amazement. Beside him stood manager Richards, eyes blazing with anger. Zoe gulped nervously. "I must go now, I'll call later," she said quickly in Dutch, ending the call. "Johnson, my office immediately." The manager's voice sliced through the silence. The journey to the small basement administrative office felt interminable. Zoe sensed her coworkers' stares, some sympathetic, others barely hiding their satisfaction. At 29, she was the cleaning department's only black woman with a university education, something Manager Richards consistently chose to overlook. "You know our policies, Johnson. No personal calls during shifts, especially in public spaces," Richards snapped once the door closed. "And speaking in what language was that? French? Dutch?" Zoe corrected reflexively, immediately regretting her response. "I don't care if it was alien. What matters is Mr. Coleman, this hotel's owner, witnessed a housekeeper neglecting duties to chat on the phone in our lobby. The unfairness stung like poison. White receptionists regularly took personal calls without repercussions. But Zoe understood the pattern. Always the same discrimination. "I'm reassigning you to convention center restrooms for 3 months. Perhaps there you can practice your languages without embarrassing our establishment." Zoe's heart plummeted. Convention center duty meant double cleaning shifts after corporate events without overtime compensation. Richard's typical punishment for rule breakers. "You may leave and consider yourself fortunate not to be terminated." That evening was among her longest. In her cramped apartment shared with 2 nursing students, Zoe wept silently, staring at her linguistics diploma and international certificates hanging on the peeling walls. 6 years cleaning hotel rooms while saving for graduate school, sending resumes that never received responses after face-to-face interviews. Next morning, she arrived early, determined to demonstrate professionalism despite the injustice. The front desk phone rang. "Zoe Johnson," called Jennifer, head receptionist. "Human Resources needs you immediately." The HR department occupied the top floor beside executive offices, forbidden territory for cleaning staff. In the elevator, she felt invisible as usual, surrounded by executives discussing multimillion-dollar deals without acknowledging her presence. "Johnson," the HR director called upon her entrance. "Please sit down." Zoe sat rigidly, bracing for termination. "Mr. Coleman has requested a personal meeting with you." Now, the owner's office exceeded her apartment's entire size. Richard Coleman, 45, was renowned in business circles for transforming bankrupt hotels into luxury establishments, and now he stared directly at her. "Dutch, French, Italian, and Mandarin, correct?" he asked bluntly, consulting an open file. Zoe blinked in confusion. "How did you obtain my resume?" "I requested it from HR after hearing you yesterday. Georgetown linguistics degree with honors, fluent in 6 languages, 2 Asian, and you've been cleaning my hotel for 6 years. What Zoe didn't realize was this moment wasn't coincidental. Nobody in that hotel suspected that behind that Dutch phone conversation lay a much larger story, an unexpected connection that would not only transform Zoe's existence but expose a discrimination system that had hidden extraordinary talent behind mops and cleaning supplies for years. If this workplace prejudice story ignites your outrage, subscribe to discover how a simple foreign language phone call became the catalyst for a reversal that not even the most powerful billionaire could have anticipated. For several seconds, complete silence filled the office. Zoe remained motionless, processing what she just heard. Richard Coleman truly knew her identity, not merely as the invisible woman in cleaning attire everyone ignored in corridors. 6 years? Coleman repeated, closing the folder and folding his arms. May I inquire why a Georgetown-educated linguist cleans my restrooms instead of handling international translations? Zoe inhaled deeply. I submitted 47 resumes to this hotel's international relations department. All disregarded. I attempted internal transfers 12 times, consistently rejected. By whom? Manager Richards and Mr. Whitmore, operations director. Coleman noted the names without hesitation. Interesting. Whitmore constantly complains about lacking multilingual personnel for international clients. His eyes narrowed. Especially for Asian conferences. What Coleman didn't mention was noticing a troubling pattern. 3 months prior, he'd hired consultants to discreetly investigate why his East Coast properties had alarming turnover rates among qualified non-white employees. Zoe, I'll be direct. Tomorrow begins a trade conference with Dutch and Chinese business leaders. I need someone fluent in both languages who understands cultural subtleties. And you want me cleaning their rooms? Zoe asked, unable to suppress her sarcasm. Coleman smiled briefly. I want you as our temporary international relations coordinator for this event. Salary $5,000 weekly, starting today. Zoe nearly dropped her handbag. That exceeded her 3-month earnings. Why me? Hundreds of qualified candidates exist. Because I heard you speaking Dutch like a native speaker. Because you possess the qualifications I require. And because I suspect something seriously wrong exists in my company. An hour later, Zoe entered the elevator with a new identification badge and complete hotel system access. Heading to HR for paperwork completion, she encountered Manager Richards. The woman's shocked expression was priceless. Johnson, what are you doing on this floor without uniform or work assignment? Ms. Richards, International Relations Coordinator, per Mr. Coleman's direct request. Richards visibly paled. Impossible. You lack the necessary qualifications. Georgetown graduate. Fluent in 6 languages, including Mandarin and Dutch. Zoe interrupted, maintaining professional composure. My resume has been in hotel files for 6 years along with my 12 transfer requests. As the manager stammered explanations, Zoe continued walking. In HR, she discovered an unexpected ally. Zoe Williams, a recently hired recruitment analyst, showed genuine enthusiasm. Zoe, finally! I reviewed your file when I started 3 months ago and couldn't comprehend why someone with your credentials was in housekeeping. Zoe confided while processing her transfer. I attempted discussing this with Whitmore, but he dismissed me immediately. That afternoon, preparing for the conference in the VIP suite, Zoe noticed something disturbing. Event documents contained incorrect and inappropriate Mandarin translations that could cause serious diplomatic misunderstandings with Chinese executives. She quickly corrected the errors, redesigning welcome materials. How did you identify these mistakes? Asked Coleman, who had been silently observing her work from the doorway. The previous translation used terms potentially offensive in formal corporate Chinese, Zoe explained. Whoever did this knows basic language but not cultural nuances. Coleman nodded thoughtfully. Whitmore assured me he hired the finest translators. It cost enormously. He hired someone without verifying credentials. Zoe corrected, indicating a critical error in partnership proposal translation. Next day, the conference commenced. Zoe moved among international business executives with natural grace, switching effortlessly between Dutch and Mandarin, mediating conversations and facilitating connections that typically required days to establish. During intermission, Whitmore approached her, the operations director who had never acknowledged her in 6 years. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Miss Johnson, I'm impressed. Richards clearly underestimated your abilities." "Thank you, Mr. Whitmore. It's remarkable how my resume listing Mandarin fluency was overlooked, especially when the hotel spent $50,000 on inadequate translation services for this conference." Whitmore's smile froze. "There must be some confusion. I never received. I have confirmation receipts for every email over 6 years." Zoe interrupted calmly. "Including those alerting you to critical errors in translations contracted for Asian events." What Zoe didn't mention was that Zoe had provided her access to translation contract records. The company belonged to Whitmore's niece, who lacked proven formal Mandarin experience but charged expert fees. Worse, all previous translations contained similar errors that could have cost millions and lost business. On the conference's third day, something unexpected occurred. One Dutch businessman recognized Zoe. "Wait, aren't you the student who authored that brilliant article on linguistic variation in international business? Published in Applied Linguistics Journal." Zoe confirmed, surprised to be recognized. "I've cited your research at 2 conferences," the man exclaimed, calling colleagues to meet her. Coleman observed from distance, noticing Whitmore's increasing discomfort. What the director didn't realize was that while he smiled and conversed, Zoe was weaving a web that would reveal not just isolated mistakes, but an entire institutionalized discrimination and corruption system that had suppressed talents like hers while directing inflated contracts to unqualified individuals. What nobody at Grand Plaza Hotel realized was that the black cleaning lady who answered a Dutch call wasn't there accidentally. Behind that seemingly simple department transfer, a plan was unfolding that would not only change Zoe's life but expose a discrimination system affecting dozens of employees. The question was no longer whether she could prove what happened, but how devastating the truth would be when revealed. On the 4th conference morning, Grand Plaza Hotel buzzed with energy. Zoe's efforts had generated preliminary contracts exceeding all expectations. Walking through the lobby, she noticed something disturbing. Whitmore was escorting a young woman, clearly nervous, to executive elevators. "Miss Whitmore, your Mandarin translation is adequate," he said in controlled tones. "No concern necessary." Zoe immediately recognized the surname. The young woman carried a folder marked "Final Translation Master Contract." A quick glance confirmed her suspicions. The same critical errors from before persisted in the text. "Mr. Coleman needs to see this," Zoe thought, hurrying to the CEO's office. Coleman was reviewing documents when she entered unannounced. "Zoe, what's happening?" "Whitmore is replacing my correct translations with flawed versions done by his niece," Zoe explained, showing him phone screenshots. "And I have proof this has continued for years." Coleman stood abruptly. "Are you absolutely certain?" "I have everything documented. Moreover, I found records of inflated payments to her translation company, 3 times above market rates, while qualified candidates like me were systematically rejected." As they spoke, Zoe from HR rushed in. "Mr. Coleman, sorry to interrupt, but I found something requiring immediate attention," she said, handing him a folder. "Hiring records for 5 years. Consistent pattern of rejecting qualified non-white candidates, especially women." Coleman reviewed the documents, his expression hardening with each page. "The external investigation detected something, but this is systematic." At that moment, Whitmore entered the office without knocking, interrupting their conversation. "Richard, the Dutch are ready to sign, but they're questioning translation inconsistencies. Johnson must have confused something." The following silence was frigid. Coleman walked slowly to the door and closed it. "Thomas, I'm seeing payment records for $50,000 for incompetent translations while we have qualified employees cleaning bathrooms," Coleman said, his voice dangerously calm. "Any explanation?" Whitmore visibly paled. "I don't understand what you're discussing." "We hire the best." "His niece Thomas," Coleman interrupted. "With 0 formal Mandarin experience." She has certification. Fake. Zoe finished, placing a printed email on the table. I just confirmed with Beijing University. They never certified Ashley Whitmore. Whitmore shot Zoe a look of pure hatred. You're nobody. A cleaning lady who thinks she can compete with professionals. PhD in Applied Linguistics from Georgetown, Zoe corrected calmly. With 6 international publications, all in HR files you've repeatedly lost. Thomas, Coleman interjected. I've called an emergency board meeting in 30 minutes. By then, I want your resignation letter on my desk. You can't be serious. Whitmore laughed nervously. Because of this. Choose your next words extremely carefully, Coleman warned. 2 hours later, the executive auditorium was packed. All managers, supervisors, and directors had been urgently summoned. In the front row, Dutch and Chinese business executives waited curiously. Richards, the cleaning manager, looked confused, sitting beside other department managers. Coleman took the stage with Zoe beside him. Today, we discovered a systematic scheme of discrimination and nepotism that has cost this company millions, he announced gravely. For years, managers like Thomas Whitmore and Sarah Richards have implemented unofficial policies harming not only our employees but our profits. A presentation began behind him showing comparative charts of employee qualifications versus positions, hiring and rejection statistics by race and gender, and overpriced contracts with companies linked to managers' family members. Ms. Johnson, whom some knew only as a cleaning lady, saved our company from diplomatic and financial disaster this week, Coleman continued, by correcting translations that would have cost millions in contractual misunderstandings. The Asian businessmen nodded in recognition, some applauding quietly. As a result of this investigation, Thomas Whitmore has been terminated for cause, Coleman announced. Sarah Richards is suspended while we complete our investigation into her involvement, and effective immediately, we are implementing a complete audit of all hiring and promotions over 5 years. The room fell into shocked silence. Richards, now pale, stared at the floor. And finally, Coleman smiled slightly. I am pleased to announce that Dr. Zoe Johnson is being named our new Global Director of International Communications, overseeing all multilingual operations. The auditorium erupted in applause. Some hesitant, many enthusiastic, especially from the cleaning crew sitting in back, who applauded with tears in their eyes. Leaving the stage, Zoe noticed Whitmore being escorted from the building by security guards, his face contorted into a mask of impotent rage. As he passed Zoe, he muttered, "You won't last a month." Zoe simply smiled serenely. In her newly acquired blazer pocket was a recording device, the same one that had captured every threat and racist comment Whitmore had whispered over recent days as he desperately tried covering up his scheme. That night, in her new office overlooking the city, Zoe finally allowed herself to cry. They weren't tears of sadness, but of deep catharsis. 6 years of cleaning hallways while her potential was denied. 6 years of, your resume must have gotten lost. And, maybe you're not a good cultural fit. She picked up the phone and called her mother, who had sacrificed everything to pay for her education. I did it, Mom, she said simply, her voice breaking. What? Nobody at Grand Plaza Hotel could have predicted that day that the real transformation was just beginning. While some executives were still digesting the shock of seeing old privileges crumble, others were already realizing the inevitable truth. True talent, when finally unleashed, not only corrects past injustices but completely redefines the future. The fall of Whitmore and his discriminatory scheme was only the first chapter in a complete overhaul that would shake the foundations not only of that hotel but of the entire American hospitality industry. And it all started with a simple phone call in Dutch. 6 months had passed since that fateful day when Zoe answered a call in Dutch in Grand Plaza Hotel's lobby. What had once been an isolated case of personal justice had turned into a silent revolution in the American hotel industry. Zoe's office on the 32nd floor now overlooked all of Manhattan. A discreet plaque on the oak door read, Dr. Zoe Johnson, Vice President of Diversity and International Relations. The salary was 5 figures monthly, not annually. But the real power lay beyond the title or financial compensation. Restructuring committee assembled and waiting. Dr. Johnson, announced Zoe, now her executive assistant and close friend. All regional managers are on the conference call. Zoe nodded, taking a deep breath before entering the conference room where Richard Coleman and the board of directors awaited her. It was the day of the final presentation of the Invisible Talents program, a personal initiative Zoe had developed to identify and promote qualified employees who were systematically overlooked throughout the hotel chain. The pilot program results have exceeded all our expectations. Zoe began, presenting numbers on the screen. In just 6 months, we identified 147 employees with skills in languages, finance, management, and technology who were in roles well below their capabilities. 83% of them Black, Latino, or from other minority groups. Coleman nodded approvingly. The program had been his first demand when accepting the promotion, not just fixing her individual situation, but changing the entire system. Most impressive, Zoe continued, is the financial impact. Outsourced translation costs are down 78%, international customer satisfaction is up 42%, and our diversity ratings are now industry-leading. All this while providing real opportunities to people already on our payroll. Across the country, Sarah Richards watched the conference broadcast from a small hotel in California. After an extensive investigation, she had escaped termination by accepting a demotion and transfer. Now she managed laundry at a second-rate property, a daily humiliation for someone who had once rejected talent based on prejudice. The next program expansion will include an internal mentoring system, Zoe explained. Each promoted talent commits to identifying and supporting other employees with potential. Thomas Whitmore was not attending the conference. After his dismissal, no luxury hotel would hire him. Allegations of systematic discrimination and embezzlement had permanently tarnished his industry reputation. Rumor had it he was now working as night manager at a roadside motel in Arizona. His niece Ashley had to return all inflated payments, complete a professional ethics program, and was now studying Mandarin, ironically, with a scholarship created by the Coleman Foundation for Inclusive Language Education. In closing, Zoe said, turning directly to the camera broadcasting to all chain properties, I want to share something personal. She paused, letting silence fill the room. When I was little, my mother worked as a maid in a hotel like this one. She had a college degree but never got a job in her field. She always told me, Zoe, no matter how much they try to make you feel invisible, your worth is not dependent on their recognition. Zoe took a deep breath, maintaining her composure. My mother passed away believing that some doors would never open for people like us. She never lived to see this moment, to see that her sacrifice was worthwhile. Across the room, several executives, many newly promoted through the program, wiped away tears discreetly. The true power of a company isn't how much it makes, but the potential it unleashes. For decades, the hospitality industry, like so many others, buried extraordinary talent under service uniforms, assuming that people of certain colors, accents, or backgrounds were only fit for invisible roles. Coleman stood up, applauding, followed by the entire room and hundreds of employees watching remotely. Later that day, Zoe received an envelope in her office. Inside was a postcard from Amsterdam and a letter from a University of Applied Linguistics offering her a position as visiting professor. Professor Van Ton, who had made that fateful call in Dutch 6 months earlier, had followed her meteoric rise. Ironically, Zoe thought as she looked out the window at the city, I have Richards to thank for punishing me that day. If she had simply given me a warning, I might still be cleaning bathrooms, my degree gathering dust. The next day, Zoe officially launched a scholarship fund for hotel employees and their children, financed partly by her new salary. The first beneficiary was the daughter of her former cleaning colleague, who dreamed of studying hotel management. What began as a phone call in Dutch had sent ripples that now spread far beyond that hotel, far beyond that industry. The message was clear. Talent exists everywhere. What is lacking are opportunities and recognition. True justice is not just punishing those who discriminate, but rebuilding entire systems so that prejudice has nowhere to hide. Zoe's sweetest revenge was not seeing her antagonists fall, but watching hundreds of people like her finally rise. If this story moved you and made you reflect on how silent prejudice can stifle extraordinary talent, leave your comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories about people who have turned injustice into platforms for real change. After all, the greatest lesson Zoe teaches us is that true greatness isn't about overcoming barriers alone, but about ensuring the doors remain open for everyone who comes after you.